Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back and tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1, The Confession. Marlena stood in the hallway of her daughter's wedding reception, her back pressed against the cool wallpaper, heart hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. Across from her, just 3 feet away, stood Gregory Callahan, silver-haired, green-eyed, and trembling like a man about to jump off a cliff. His tuxedo was perfect, his cologne expensive, his voice barely a whisper when he said the words that would wreck everything. "I'm in love with you, Marlena. I have been since the day we met." The music from the ballroom thumped through the walls, laughter and champagne glasses clinking in celebration of their children's marriage. But here in this narrow hallway, the world had stopped. Marlena's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This man, this white man with money and power and a dead wife's memory still hanging in his house, was confessing feelings she'd been running from for 8 months. She'd felt it too. God help her. She'd felt it too. But she was black, 47, a grandmother, and this was her daughter Ivy's father-in-law. This was wrong on every level. Gregory stepped closer and Marlena's pulse spiked. "Say something," he whispered, his voice rough, desperate. "Please." She wanted to slap him. She wanted to run. She wanted to tell him he was crazy, that this could never happen, that their kids had just gotten married and he was about to blow up 2 families with his selfishness. But instead, her eyes filled with tears and her voice came out small and broken. "You don't know what you're asking?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "I know exactly what I'm asking. I've tried to stop this. I've prayed. I've buried myself in work. I've done everything to make this feeling go away, and it won't." His hand lifted toward her face, and Marlena flinched back, her head hitting the wall. She saw the hurt flash in his eyes, but she couldn't let him touch her. If he touched her, she'd fall apart. If he touched her, she'd admit the truth she'd been hiding, that she'd been thinking about him too, that she'd been dreaming about him, that she'd been hating herself for it. The hallway suddenly felt too small, too hot. Marlena pushed past him, her heels clicking fast on the marble floor as she hurried toward the women's bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and bent over, hands on her knees, gasping for air. Her mind was spinning. How did it get here? How did a man she was supposed to politely tolerate at family dinners become someone who made her stomach flip every time he walked into a room? She thought back to the first time she'd met him 8 months ago at the engagement party. He'd been polite, respectful, a little distant. She'd barely noticed him. But then came the wedding planning meetings, the dinners, the moments when their eyes would catch across the table and hold just a second too long. She'd told herself it was nothing, that she was imagining things, that a man like Gregory Callahan, CEO of a construction empire living in a mansion in Malibu, would never look twice at a woman like her, a single mom who'd raised Ivy in a 2-bedroom apartment in Inglewood, working double shifts as a nurse just to keep the lights on. But he had looked, and now he'd said it out loud. Marlena wiped her face, her hands shaking. She had to get out of here. She had to go back to the reception, smile, hug her daughter, and pretend like the last 5 minutes hadn't just shattered her entire world. She straightened her dress, a deep burgundy gown Ivy had insisted she buy, and stepped out of the stall. The mirror showed a woman who still looked good for her age, skin smooth and brown, hair in soft curls pinned elegantly to one side. But her eyes told the truth. They were wild, scared. She splashed cold water on her face and took a deep breath. When she walked back into the ballroom, Gregory was standing near the bar watching her. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes followed her every step. Marlena's stomach twisted. She looked away and headed straight for Ivy, who was glowing in her white gown, laughing with her new husband, Brendan, Gregory's son. Ivy turned and smiled, pulling her mother into a hug. "Mom, where'd you go? You missed the toast." Marlena forced a smile, her voice steady even though her insides were screaming. "Just needed some air, baby. You look so beautiful." Ivy squeezed her hand. "I'm so happy, Mom. Thank you for everything." Marlena's heart cracked a little more. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "I love you, Ivy. Always." Over Ivy's shoulder, she saw Gregory still watching her from across the room. And in that moment, Marlena knew this wasn't over, not even close. Whatever had started between them was about to explode, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She just didn't know yet how much it would cost her. Chapter 2, The Beginning. 8 months earlier, Marlena had walked into the Callahan estate with her daughter and felt like she'd stepped into a different world. The house sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, all glass and white stone, with a circular driveway lined with rose bushes. Ivy had been nervous, clutching Brendan's hand as they approached the front door, but Marlena had kept her face calm, her back straight. She'd learned a long time ago not to let white folks see you sweat. Brendan had warned them that his father could be a little formal, but Marlena wasn't worried. She'd dealt with all kinds of people in 25 years of nursing. She could handle one rich white man. When Gregory opened the door, Marlena's first thought was that he looked tired. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair that was probably blonde once, and green eyes that seemed to carry a weight she recognized, the weight of loss. He shook her hand firmly, his grip warm but not invasive, and said, "Mrs. Hayes, it's a pleasure to meet you." Marlena had corrected him gently. "It's Ms. Hayes, and you can call me Marlena." They'd spent that first evening in his dining room, a space so big it echoed, eating catered food off china plates that probably cost more than her car payment. The conversation had been polite, surface level, talk about Brendan's work as a marine biologist, Ivy's career in graphic design, the wedding plans. Marlena had watched Gregory carefully, the way any mother watches the father of the man her daughter is about to marry. He seemed kind, if a little stiff. He asked thoughtful questions. He didn't interrupt. He listened when Ivy talked about growing up in Inglewood, about the struggles Marlena had faced raising her alone after Ivy's father walked out. And when Marlena mentioned working night shifts at Cedars-Sinai, Gregory's eyes had softened. "That must have been hard," he'd said quietly. Marlena had shrugged. You do what you have to do." Something shifted in the room then, a quiet understanding that neither of them acknowledged, but both of them felt. Gregory nodded, and for a moment, they just looked at each other across the table. Over the next few months, the families met often. Wedding planning brunches, cake tastings, dress fittings. Marlena tried to stay focused on Ivy, but she kept noticing things about Gregory. The way he poured coffee for everyone before sitting down himself. The way he always pulled out Marlena's chair before his own. The way he asked about her shifts at the hospital, remembering details she'd mentioned weeks before. It felt like he was paying attention in a way most men didn't. One afternoon, they'd been left alone in his living room while the kids ran errands. Marlena had been standing by the window, looking out at the ocean, when Gregory walked in carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. He handed her one and stood beside her, quiet for a moment. "My wife used to love this view," he'd said softly. Marlena glanced at him. "How long has she been gone?" 3 years. Cancer. His voice was steady, but Marlene heard the pain underneath. "I'm sorry," she'd said and meant it. Gregory nodded. "Thank you, she would have liked you." That sentence had landed in Marlena's chest and stayed there. She looked at him, confused, and found him already looking at her. Not the polite, distant look he usually gave. Something deeper. Something that made her pulse quicken. "Why do you say that?" Marlena had asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Gregory had smiled. a sad small smile. Because you're real. You don't pretend, you don't perform, you just are. Marlena's breath had caught. She turned back to the window, heart racing, unsure what to say. The silence between them had felt electric, dangerous. When Ivy and Brendan came back, laughing and carrying shopping bags, Marlena had practically jumped away from the window, guilt flooding her, even though nothing had happened, but something had happened, something invisible and irreversible. From that day on, every time she saw Gregory, it was harder to pretend. Harder to ignore the way her stomach flipped when he walked into a room. Harder to ignore the way his eyes found hers first, always. And now, months later, standing in that hallway at the wedding, he'd finally said it out loud. Marlena sat in her car in the parking lot of the reception hall, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. She'd left early, told Ivy she had a headache, kissed her daughter goodbye, and walked out before she could run into Gregory again. But as she sat there in the dark, engine running, she couldn't stop replaying his words. I'm in love with you. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and let out a shaky breath. This was a disaster, a full-blown family-destroying disaster. She was supposed to be Ivy's mother, the proud, strong black woman who'd raised her daughter right, who'd sacrificed everything to give her a good life. She wasn't supposed to be the woman catching feelings for her daughter's white father-in-law. That wasn't the script. That wasn't the plan. But her heart didn't care about scripts or plans. Her heart was a traitor. Chapter 3. The Text. 3 days after the wedding, Marlena's phone buzzed while she was restocking supplies in the ICU. She glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. No, it was a text from Gregory. We need to talk, please. She stared at the message for a full minute, her hands frozen. Around her, machines beeped, nurses moved quickly past, but Marlena felt like she was underwater. She deleted the text without responding and shoved her phone into her scrubs pocket. But 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. I know you're scared, I am too, but we can't just pretend this didn't happen. Marlena's hands were shaking now. She stepped into the supply closet, closed the door, and leaned against the wall. Her chest felt tight. She typed back quickly, her fingers moving before her brain could stop them. There's nothing to talk about. What you said was a mistake. Let's just forget it. She hit send and immediately regretted it. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. He was typing. Marlena's heart hammered. Then his message came through. It wasn't a mistake, and you know it. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she typed back, her hands trembling. Gregory, this is insane. Our kids just got married. You're white. I'm black. You're rich. I'm not. This would destroy everything. Do you understand that? The 3 dots again. Marlena held her breath. I understand. But I also understand that I've spent 3 years feeling dead inside, and you're the first person who made me feel alive again. So, yes, it's insane. But it's also the truth. Marlena's vision blurred with tears. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to hold it together. She couldn't do this. She couldn't let this man pull her into something that would ruin her daughter's happiness, that would make her the villain in a story she'd worked her whole life to write differently. She typed one last message. I can't do this. Please don't contact me again. Then she blocked his number. For 2 weeks, Marlena threw herself into work. She picked up extra shifts, stayed late, came in early, anything to keep her mind off Gregory. Ivy called every few days, glowing and happy, talking about her honeymoon in Greece, about how wonderful Brendan was, about how she'd never been so in love. And every time Marlena heard her daughter's voice, the guilt twisted deeper. One night, after a 12-hour shift, Marlena came home to find a package on her doorstep. No return address, just her name written in neat, careful handwriting. She knew immediately who it was from. Inside was a book, a collection of poems by Maya Angelou, and a single note tucked between the pages. I'm not giving up. You can block my number, but you can't block what we both know is real. I'll wait as long as it takes. G. Marlena sat on her couch and cried. Not because she was angry, but because part of her the part she was trying so hard to silence, was relieved that he wasn't giving up, relieved that she wasn't the only one losing her mind over this. The next Sunday, Ivy invited Marlena over for brunch at her and Brendan's new condo in Santa Monica. Marlena almost said no, but she couldn't avoid her daughter forever. When she arrived, Brendan answered the door with a big smile. "Hey, Ms. Hayes, come on in. Dad's here too. Hope that's cool." Marlena's stomach dropped. She forced a smile. "Of course." She stepped inside, and there he was. Gregory standing in the kitchen holding a cup of coffee, looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Ivy came bouncing over, pulling Marlena into a hug. "Mom, I'm so glad you're here. We're making pancakes. Well, Brendan's making pancakes. I'm supervising." Marlena laughed, but it sounded hollow. She avoided Gregory's eyes and focused on Ivy, on the happiness radiating from her daughter, but she could feel him watching her, could feel the weight of his presence like gravity. During brunch, Marlena sat across from Gregory, every nerve in her body on fire. Ivy and Brendan were talking about a trip they were planning to visit Brendan's Marine Research Station in Monterey, but Marlena barely heard a word. All she could focus on was Gregory's hand resting on the table, inches from hers. At one point, Ivy got up to get more orange juice, and Brendan followed her into the kitchen, leaving Marlena and Gregory alone at the table. The silence was suffocating. Gregory leaned forward slightly, his voice low. "Did you get my package?" Marlena didn't look at him. "Yes, and..." She finally met his eyes, and the intensity there nearly knocked the breath out of her. "And nothing. This can happen, Gregory." His jaw tightened. "Why not?" "Because it will destroy everything." Marlena's voice was sharp, desperate. "Because Ivy will never forgive me? Because your son will never forgive you? Because people will look at us and see something wrong, something dirty, and I can't..." Her voice broke, and she looked away. Gregory reached across the table, his hand covering hers before she could pull away. His touch was warm, steady, and it sent a shock through her entire body. "Marlena," he said quietly, urgently, "I don't care what people think. I don't care about the optics or the complications. I care about you, and I know you feel the same way." Marlena pulled her hand back just as Ivy walked back into the room. She plastered on a smile, her heart racing, and prayed her daughter hadn't seen anything. But as brunch went on, Marlena realized something that terrified her more than anything else. Gregory was right. She did feel the same way. And no matter how hard she tried to fight it, no matter how many walls she built, the truth was already breaking through. She was falling in love with him too, and she had no idea how to stop it. Chapter 4, The Kiss. 2 weeks later, Marlena found herself standing outside Gregory's office building in downtown LA, her hands shaking as she stared at her phone. She'd unblocked his number that morning after another sleepless night, and now she was here because he'd sent a message that simply said, "Please, just give me 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She didn't know why she came, didn't know what she thought would happen, but her feet had carried her here anyway, and now she was riding the elevator up to the 15th floor, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. When the elevator doors opened, Gregory was standing in the hallway, waiting. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes tired, his tie loosened, his expression raw and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "You came," he said, his voice thick with relief. Marlena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. He gestured toward his office. "Come on, let's talk somewhere private." She followed him inside, and he closed the door behind them. The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, dark wood furniture, shelves lined with books and architectural models, but Marlena barely noticed any of it. All she could focus on was Gregory standing in front of her, looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "I don't know what to say," Marlena whispered, her voice trembling. "So I'll start," Gregory said. He stepped closer and Marlena's breath hitched. I know this is complicated. I know it's messy. I know it goes against everything we're supposed to do. But Marlena, I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I wake up thinking about you. I go to sleep thinking about you. Every time I see you, it takes everything in me not to... He stopped, his voice breaking. Marlena's eyes filled with tears. Not to what? Gregory's gaze dropped to her lips, and Marlena's knees nearly gave out. Not to do this, he said softly. And then he kissed her. The world exploded. Every rational thought Marlena had flew out the window the moment his lips touched hers. His hands cupped her face gently, like she was something precious, something fragile. And Marlena's entire body lit up like a match struck in the dark. She kissed him back, her hands gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. And it was like drowning and breathing at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, and Marlena felt like she'd just jumped off a cliff. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice shaking. "What did we just do?" Gregory's thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "We told the truth." Marlena stepped back, her mind racing. "This is a mistake. It's not a mistake," Gregory said firmly. "Marlena, look at me." She did. And the look in his eyes was so honest, so full of something she hadn't felt in years, that it broke her. "I'm 52 years old," Gregory said quietly. "I've built a successful company. I've raised a good son. I've done everything I was supposed to do, but I've been numb for 3 years. Just existing. And then I met you. And it was like someone turned the lights back on. You make me feel alive, Marlena. And I know I make you feel something too." Marlena's chest was tight. She wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. He was right. "This will hurt people," she said, her voice breaking. Ivy loves you," Gregory interrupted. "And she loves Brandon. And yeah, this will be hard for them at first, but we're not doing anything wrong. We're two grown adults who have feelings for each other. We're not sneaking around. We're not lying. We're just being honest about what we feel." Marlena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. You're white. You're rich. People already look at me like I don't belong in your world. If we do this, they'll say I'm after your money. They'll say I'm some gold digger who trapped you. They'll let them say whatever they want," Gregory said, his voice fierce. "I don't care." But Marlena did care. She cared deeply because she'd spent her whole life fighting to be respected, to be seen as more than a stereotype. And this relationship with Gregory would undo all of that. People would look at them and see exactly what she feared most. A black woman who couldn't afford her daughter's wedding climbing into bed with the rich white man who could. It didn't matter that it wasn't true. It didn't matter that what she felt for Gregory was real. Perception was everything, and the world had already decided what women like her were allowed to be. Marlena wiped her face and took a shaky breath. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to think." Gregory nodded, his expression pained but understanding. "Okay, take all the time you need, but Marlena," she looked at him, "I'm not giving up on you, on us, no matter how long it takes." Marlena left his office with her heart in pieces, knowing that no matter how much time she took, the answer wasn't going to change. She was in love with Gregory Callahan, and that love was going to cost her everything. Chapter 5. The Fallout. Marlena lasted exactly 5 days before she caved. She showed up at Gregory's house late one Friday night, her hand shaking as she knocked on the door. When he opened it, his eyes widened in surprise, but he didn't ask questions. He just stepped aside and let her in. "I can't stop thinking about you," Marlena said, her voice raw. "I've tried, God, I've tried, but I can't." Gregory's face softened and he closed the space between them, pulling her into his arms. Marlena collapsed against him, her tears soaking into his shirt, and for the first time in weeks, she let herself feel it, all of it. The fear, the guilt, the longing. Gregory held her tight, his hand stroking her hair, and whispered, "It's okay. We'll figure it out together." That night, they talked for hours about their past, their fears, their dreams. Gregory told her about his late wife, about how grief had hollowed him out, how he'd stopped believing he'd ever feel anything real again. Marlena told him about Ivy's father, about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering how she'd pay rent, about the strength it took to keep going when everything felt impossible. And somewhere in those hours, the walls between them crumbled completely. They kissed again, slower this time, deeper. And when Gregory led her upstairs to his bedroom, Marlena didn't hesitate. For the first time in years, she let herself be wanted, let herself be loved. The next morning, Marlena woke up in Gregory's bed, sunlight streaming through the windows, and reality crashed down on her like a wave. She sat up, her heart racing, and looked at Gregory still sleeping beside her. Panic clawed at her throat. What had she done? She slipped out of bed as quietly as she could, grabbed her clothes, and was halfway down the stairs when Gregory's voice stopped her. "Marlena, wait!" She turned in there, and he was standing at the top of the staircase, wearing only sweatpants, his expression desperate. "Please don't run." "I have to," Marlena said, her voice shaking. "This was a mistake. I shouldn't have." "It wasn't a mistake," Gregory said firmly. He came down the stairs, stopping a few steps above her, so they were eye to eye. "And you know it." Marlena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Gregory, we can't do this. Her phone rang. Marlena's stomach dropped when she saw the name on the screen. "Ivy," she answered with trembling hands. "Hey, baby." "Mom, hey, are you busy? Brendan and I are grabbing brunch, and we wanted to see if you and Gregory want to join us. His phone's going to voicemail." Marlena's eyes snapped to Gregory, and the look on his face told her he understood. They'd been caught. Not literally, but close enough. I'm actually at work right now, sweetheart," Marlena lied, her voice tight. "Maybe another time?" "Oh, okay, no worries. Love you, Mom." "Love you too." Marlena hung up and looked at Gregory, her heart breaking all over again. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. We're already lying to her." Gregory's jaw tightened. "Then let's stop lying. Let's tell him." "Are you insane?" Marlena's voice rose. "Gregory, they just got married. We can't drop this bomb on them now." "Then when?" Gregory shot back. "When is it ever going to be the right time, Marlena? We can wait a year, 5 years, 10. It's always going to be complicated, but that doesn't mean it's wrong." Marlena wanted to argue, but she had no answer because he was right. There was never going to be a perfect moment to tell their children that they'd fallen in love. It was always going to hurt. It was always going to be messy. But did that mean they should just give up? Marlena wiped her face and took a shaky breath. "I need to go." Gregory nodded, pain flickering across his face. "Okay, but Marlena?" She looked back at him. "I love you. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but I do. And I'm not going to stop fighting for this, for us." Marlena's throat closed, and she turned and walked out the door before she could say the words she knew she'd regret, or the words she knew were true. As she drove home, her phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number. "I know what you did. And if you don't end it, I'll tell Ivy everything." Marlena's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, her knuckles turned white. Someone knew. And whoever they were about to blow her entire world apart. For the next 3 days, Marlena lived in terror. She didn't tell Gregory about the text, didn't tell anyone. She just waited, heart pounding every time her phone buzzed, expecting the worst. Then, on the 4th day, she got another message. This time it included a photo, a picture of her and Gregory kissing in his office, taken through the window. Marlena's blood ran cold. The message below it read, "You have 48 hours to end it, or Ivy finds out." Marlena's hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. "Who is this?" The response came almost instantly. "Someone who cares about Ivy more than you do." Marlena felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She sat on her couch, staring at the photo, and realized with sickening clarity that this wasn't going to end quietly. Someone was watching. Someone knew. And unless she figured out who, and fast. Everything she'd tried so hard to protect was about to come crashing down. She looked at the photo one more time, her heart breaking, and made a decision. She was going to end it with Gregory, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Chapter 6, The Confrontation. Marlena sat across from Gregory in a quiet corner of a coffee shop in Culver City, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She texted him that morning and asked to meet, and now she was about to break both their hearts. Gregory reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "What's wrong? You sounded scared on the phone." Marlena pulled her hand back, her chest tight. "We need to end this." Gregory's face went pale. "What? Why?" Marlena pulled out her phone and showed him the photo. The color drained from his face as he stared at the image of them kissing in his office. "Someone's been watching us," Marlena said, her voice shaking. "And they're threatening to tell Ivy if I don't end things with you. I have 48 hours. Gregory's jaw clenched. "This is blackmail." "I know." "Then we go to the police. And say what?" Marlena interrupted. "That someone took a photo of us kissing? That's not illegal, Gregory. And the second we involve the police, this becomes public. Ivy will find out. Brendan will find out. Everyone will know." Gregory ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn between anger and desperation. "So what? We just give up? We let some coward with a camera dictate our lives?" Marlena's voice broke. "I don't see another option." "The other option is we tell them ourselves," Gregory said firmly. "Before this person does. We sit down with Ivy and Brendan and we tell them the truth, that we didn't plan this, that we didn't want to hurt anyone, but that we fell in love and we're not going to apologize for it." Marlena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. Ivy will hate me. She'll think I betrayed her. She'll think I'm some desperate woman who couldn't keep her hands off her daughter's father-in-law. She'll be upset," Gregory interrupted. "But she'll get over it because she loves you and because deep down she wants you to be happy." Marlena wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But she knew her daughter. Ivy was kind, but she was also proud. And this would feel like a betrayal. It didn't matter that Marlena and Gregory were both single adults. It didn't matter that they hadn't done anything wrong. In Ivy's eyes, this would be unforgivable. "I can't lose her," Marlena whispered. "She's all I have." Gregory's expression softened and he leaned forward, his voice gentle. "You won't lose her, I promise." But Marlena didn't believe him because she'd already lost too much in her life. And the thought of losing Ivy, her daughter, her reason for everything, was more than she could bear. She stood up, her hands shaking. "I'm sorry, Gregory, but this is over." Gregory stood too, his eyes desperate. "Marlena, please." "I'm sorry," she said again and walked out before he could say anything else. As she drove home, her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Smart choice. Now stay away from him, or next time I won't be so kind." Marlena stared at the message, rage and fear warring inside her. Whoever this person was, they weren't done. And Marlena had a terrible feeling that no matter what she did, this wasn't going to end quietly. That night, Marlena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Gregory over and over in her mind. She'd done the right thing. She'd protected Ivy. She'd protected her family. But then why did it feel like she just ripped her own heart out? Around 2 a.m, her phone rang. It was Gregory. Marlena almost didn't answer, but something in her chest wouldn't let her ignore it. "Hello?" "I know who's blackmailing you." Marlena sat up, her heart racing. What?" "I went through the security footage from my office building," Gregory said, his voice tight with anger. "I know who took that photo, and Marlena, you're not going to believe this." "Who?" Marlena whispered. Gregory took a shaky breath. "Brendan's ex-girlfriend, a woman named Sienna Holt. She works in the building next to mine. She must have seen us through the window and decided to. Why would she care? Marlena interrupted. Why would she? Because she's still in love with Brendan, Gregory said, and she blames you and Ivy for ruining her chances of getting him back. Marlena's mind was spinning. She barely remembered meeting Sienna. Brendan had mentioned her once or twice, but Marlena had never thought much of it. What do we do? Marlena asked, her voice shaking. We confront her, Gregory said. Together, tomorrow, we tell her that if she breathes a word of this to anyone, we'll go to the police and file a harassment complaint, and then we tell Ivy and Brendan ourselves before she gets the chance. Marlena's stomach twisted. Gregory, Marlena, this is our shot, Gregory said, his voice urgent. We take control of the narrative. We tell our kids the truth on our terms, not hers. Please, trust me. Marlena closed her eyes, her heart pounding. She knew he was right, but that didn't make it any less terrifying. Okay, she whispered. Okay. And as she hung up the phone, Marlena realized that the storm she'd been trying to avoid was about to hit, and there was no way out but through. Chapter 7, The Truth Comes Out. The next morning, Marlena and Gregory stood outside the glass office building where Sienna worked, both of them tense and silent. Marlena's hands were shaking, but Gregory reached over and squeezed her hand gently. We've got this, he said quietly. Marlena nodded, even though her stomach was in knots. When they walked into the sleek lobby and asked for Sienna Holt, the receptionist directed them to the 10th floor. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, Sienna was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. She was tall, blonde, and polished in a way that made Marlena feel suddenly self-conscious. Well, Sienna said, her voice dripping with mockery. The lovebirds finally figured it out. Gregory's jaw tightened. What the hell do you think you're doing, Sienna? Sienna tilted her head, her smile widening. I'm protecting Brendan from her. She pointed at Marlena. You think I'm going to stand by and watch some opportunistic nurse seduce my ex's father? Please. Marlena's blood boiled. Excuse me? You heard me, Sienna said coldly. You saw a rich, grieving white man and you pounced. Don't act like you're some saint. Marlena stepped forward, her voice sharp. You don't know a damn thing about me or about what I've been through, and you sure as hell don't know what Gregory and I have. Sienna laughed, a cruel, bitter sound. What you have? You mean an affair that's going to destroy your daughter's marriage? Yeah, I know exactly what you have. Gregory's voice was ice. This ends now. You're going to delete that photo and you're going to stay out of our lives, or I will file a harassment complaint so fast your head will spin. Sienna's smile faltered for a split second, but then she shrugged. Go ahead. But by the time you do, Ivy will already know. I sent her the photo 10 minutes ago. Marlena's world stopped. Her knees nearly buckled, and Gregory grabbed her arm to steady her. You did what? Marlena whispered, her voice barely audible. Sienna's smile returned, cold and victorious. You should have just ended it when I told you to. Now everyone's going to know what kind of woman you really are. Marlena's vision blurred with rage and tears, but before she could say anything, Gregory stepped between them. Get out of here, Sienna. Before I do something we'll both regret. Sienna rolled her eyes, but she turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The second she was gone, Marlena collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Oh my God, Ivy knows. She knows Gregory. Gregory pulled her into his arms, his voice steady even though she could feel him shaking. We're going to fix this. We're going to go to her right now, and we're going to explain everything. Marlena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She's never going to forgive me. Yes, she will, Gregory said firmly, because she loves you, and because we're going to tell her the truth, the whole truth. Marlena wanted to believe him, but as they rushed to the car, her phone buzzing nonstop with missed calls from Ivy, She knew that nothing was ever going to be the same again. 20 minutes later, they were standing outside Ivy and Brendan's condo, and Marlena felt like she was about to walk into a firing squad. Gregory knocked on the door, and Brendan opened it, his face pale and strained. "Dad, Ms. Hayes, come in." Inside, Ivy was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, her face streaked with tears. When she looked up and saw Marlena, the pain in her eyes was like a knife to the chest. "Is it true?" Ivy whispered, her voice breaking. "Tell me it's not true, Mom." Marlena's throat closed, and she couldn't speak. Gregory stepped forward. "Ivy, Brendan, please let us explain." "Explain what?" Ivy's voice rose, sharp and furious. "Explain how my mother has been sleeping with my father-in-law behind my back? Explain how you two have been lying to us this whole time?" "We weren't lying," Marlena said, her voice shaking. We didn't know how to tell you." Ivy stood up, her hands trembling. "You didn't know how to tell me? Mom, you've been the one person I could always trust, the one person who always had my back. And now I find out you've been sneaking around with Gregory? How could you do this to me?" Marlena's tears came fast and hard. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Ivy. I swear. I tried to fight it. I tried to stay away. But what?" Ivy shouted. "But you couldn't keep your hands off him? Is that it?" The words hit Marlena like a slap, and she flinched. Gregory stepped forward, his voice firm. "Ivy, that's enough. Your mother didn't do anything wrong. Neither of us did. We're two adults who fell in love. That's all this is." Ivy turned on him, her eyes blazing. "You fell in love? Dad, she's my mother. How am I supposed to be okay with this?" Brendan spoke up for the first time, his voice quiet but tense. "Dad, this is a lot. I mean, I get that you've been lonely, but this isn't about loneliness," Gregory interrupted. "This is about the fact that I love her, truly love her, and I'm not going to apologize for that." Ivy let out a bitter laugh. "Of course you're not, because you get to do whatever you want, right? You're rich, you're powerful, and the rest of us just have to deal with it." Marlena's heart shattered. "Ivy, please, just listen." "No," Ivy said, her voice cold. "I don't want to hear it. I need you both to leave now." Marlena opened her mouth to protest, but the look on Ivy's face stopped her. It was a look she'd never seen before. Pure betrayal, pure hurt. Gregory gently touched Marlena's arm. "Come on, let's give them some space." Marlena let him guide her out of the condo, her vision blurred with tears. The door slammed behind them and Marlena collapsed against the wall in the hallway, sobbing. Gregory held her, his own face wet with tears. And for the first time since this all started, Marlena wondered if love was really worth it, if it was really worth losing everything. Chapter 8, The Reckoning. For 2 weeks, Marlena heard nothing from Ivy. No calls, no texts, nothing. It was like her daughter had vanished from the earth, and the silence was suffocating. Marlena tried to focus on work, but every patient she saw, every beeping machine, every sterile hallway reminded her of what she lost. Gregory called her every day, checking in, making sure she was okay, but Marlena felt like she was drowning. One night, she showed up at his house unannounced, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Gregory opened the door and immediately pulled her inside, holding her while she broke down. "I can't do this anymore," Marlena sobbed. "I can't lose her. I can't." "You're not going to lose her," Gregory said, his voice firm. "Ivy just needs time." "It's been 2 weeks, Gregory." Marlena pulled back, her voice rising. "She won't even answer my calls. She hates me." "She doesn't hate you," Gregory said. "She's hurt. She's angry, but she doesn't hate you." Marlena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe we should just end this. Maybe if I..." "No," Gregory interrupted, his voice sharp. "We're not doing that. We're not letting fear dictate our lives, Marlena." Marlena looked at him, and for the first time, she saw the cracks in his composure. He was hurting too. Brendan had barely spoken to him since the confrontation, and Marlena knew Gregory was carrying his own guilt. I'm sorry, Marlena whispered. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. Gregory cupped her face gently, his eyes fierce. You didn't drag me into anything. I chose this. I chose you, and I'd choose you 1,000 times over. Marlena's chest tightened, and she kissed him, desperate, hungry, like he was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. They made love that night, slow and tender, and for a few hours, Marlena let herself forget about the world outside. But the next morning, reality came crashing back. Marlena's phone rang, and when she saw Ivy's name on the screen, her heart nearly stopped. She answered with trembling hands. Ivy? We need to talk, Ivy said, her voice flat. In person. Okay, when? Now. Meet me at the park near my place. Alone. The line went dead and Marlena's stomach twisted. This was it. This was the moment that would decide everything, and an hour later, Marlena sat on a bench in the park, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When Ivy appeared, walking slowly toward her, Marlena's breath caught. Her daughter looked tired, her eyes red, her face drawn. Ivy sat down on the bench, leaving a space between them that felt like a canyon. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ivy broke the silence. I've been thinking a lot these past 2 weeks, she said quietly. About you, about Gregory, about everything. Marlena's heart pounded. Ivy, let me finish, Ivy interrupted, her voice firm but not unkind. Marlena nodded, her throat tight. Ivy took a shaky breath. You hurt me, Mom. You really hurt me. When I found out, it felt like my whole world had been turned upside down. I kept thinking, how could you do this? How could you fall for Gregory of all people? Marlena's eyes filled with tears. I didn't plan it, baby. I swear. It just happened. Ivy nodded slowly. I know. And that's what I've been trying to wrap my head around because I know you, Mom. I know you're not the kind of person who does things lightly. You've spent your whole life putting me first, sacrificing for me, and I realized I've never really thought about what you want, what you need. Marlena's tears spilled over, and she covered her mouth with her hand. Ivy continued, her voice soft. Brendan and I talked a lot, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, my dad hasn't smiled like that in years, not since Mom died. And if your mom is the reason he's smiling again, maybe we should be grateful. And I realized he's right. You've been alone for so long, Mom. You've been strong for so long. And if Gregory makes you happy, if he makes you feel loved, who am I to stand in the way of that? Marlena let out a sob, and Ivy reached over, taking her hand. I'm still hurt, Ivy said, her voice breaking. And I'm still working through it, but I don't want to lose you, Mom. You're my best friend, and I love you no matter what. Marlena pulled Ivy into her arms, holding her tight, and they both cried. I'm so sorry, baby, Marlena whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, Ivy said, and I forgive you. They sat there for a long time, holding each other, and slowly, the weight that had been crushing Marlena's chest began to lift. When they finally pulled apart, Ivy wiped her face and gave Marlena a small, tired smile. So, you and Gregory, huh? Marlena let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, me and Gregory. Ivy shook her head, a hint of humor in her eyes. My mom and my father-in-law? This is going to be so weird at Thanksgiving. Marlena laughed, a real full laugh, and it felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. I love you, Ivy. I love you too, Mom. As they walked out of the park together, Marlena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. That night, Marlena called Gregory and told him everything. He let out a breath of relief so deep it sounded like he'd been holding it for years. I told you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I told you she'd come around. Marlena smiled, tears streaming down her face. You were right. So what now? Gregory asked. Now, Marlena said, her voice steady. We stop hiding. We stop apologizing, and we live our lives. Gregory was quiet for a moment, and then he said, I love you, Marlena Hayes. Marlena's heart swelled. I love you too, Gregory Callahan. And for the first time in weeks, Marlena let herself believe that love, real, messy, complicated love, was worth fighting for. Chapter 9, The Storm. Just when Marlena thought things were finally settled, the universe threw her another curveball. It started with a phone call from Brendan. Marlena was at work, restocking IV lines, when her phone buzzed. She almost didn't answer. Hospital policy was strict about personal calls, but something told her to pick up. Ms. Hayes? Brendan's voice was tight, strained. It's my dad. He's in the hospital. Marlena's blood went cold. What? What happened? Heart attack. He collapsed at the office an hour ago. They rushed him to Cedars-Sinai. Ivy and I are on our way there now. Marlena's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. I'm coming right now. She didn't even clock out. She just ran out of the ICU, down the stairs, through the parking garage. Her mind was racing, her chest tight with fear. Please, God, she prayed, please don't take him from me. Not now, not when we just figured this out. When she burst through the doors of the emergency room, Ivy and Brendan were standing in the waiting area, both of them pale and scared. Ivy saw her first and ran over, throwing her arms around Marlena. Mom, I'm so scared. I know, baby, Marlena whispered, holding her tight. I know. Brendan looked at Marlena, his eyes red. They said it was a major cardiac event. They're running tests now, but his voice broke, and he looked away. Marlena's nurse instincts kicked in immediately. She grabbed Brendan's arm gently. Who's his doctor? What's his status? Have they done an EKG? Catheterization? Brendan rattled off the details, and Marlena's mind started working through the possibilities. She knew this hospital. She knew the cardiologist. She knew the protocols. And she was not about to sit in a waiting room doing nothing while the man she loved was fighting for his life. She turned to Ivy. I'm going to go talk to his medical team. I'll be right back. Ivy nodded, her face streaked with tears. Marlena marched up to the nurse's station, flashed her hospital badge, and demanded to speak to the attending. When Dr. Ramirez, a colleague she'd worked with for years, came out, Marlena didn't waste time. Gregory Callahan, what's his status? Dr. Ramirez's eyes widened slightly. Marlena, you know I can't. He's family, Marlena said firmly, and I need to know what's happening. Dr. Ramirez hesitated, then nodded. Okay, he had a STEMI, ST elevation myocardial infarction. We've already performed an emergency angioplasty and placed 2 stents. He's stable for now, but the next 48 hours are critical. Marlena's knees nearly buckled, but she forced herself to stay strong. Can I see him? He's in the cardiac ICU. Family only. I'm family, Marlena said, her voice breaking. Please. Dr. Ramirez looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Room 304, but only for a few minutes. Marlena walked into Gregory's room, and the sight of him nearly broke her. He was lying in the hospital bed, pale and weak, wires and tubes attached to his chest and oxygen mask covering his face. His eyes were closed, and for a terrifying moment, Marlena thought she was too late. Then his eyes fluttered open, and when he saw her, a weak smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Marlena, he whispered, his voice raspy. Marlena rushed to his side, taking his hand gently. Don't you ever scare me like that again, she said, her voice shaking. Do you hear me? Gregory's smile widened slightly. I'll try. Marlena leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. I love you. I love you so much. I love you too, Gregory whispered. And I'm not going anywhere. Not yet. Marlena kissed his forehead gently, her tears falling onto his skin. You better not. For the next 2 days, Marlena barely left Gregory's side. She used every connection she had in the hospital to make sure he got the best care, the best nurses, the best everything. Ivy and Brendan were there too, rotating shifts, bringing food, trying to stay hopeful. On the second night, when Ivy found Marlena asleep in the chair beside Gregory's bed, her head resting on the edge of the mattress, Ivy gently shook her awake. "Mom, go home. Get some rest." Marlena shook her head, her voice thick with exhaustion. "I'm not leaving him." Ivy's eyes softened. "Mom, you've been here for 48 hours straight. You're going to collapse. Please go home. I'll stay with him." Marlena looked at Gregory still sleeping peacefully and then back at Ivy. "You promise you'll call me if anything changes?" "I promise." Reluctantly, Marlena stood, kissed Gregory's hand one more time, and let Ivy walk her out. As they stood in the hospital parking lot, Ivy turned to Marlena, her expression serious. "He really loves you, doesn't he?" Marlena nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Yeah, he does." Ivy smiled, a real genuine smile. "Good, because you deserve that, Mom. You deserve to be loved like that." Marlena pulled Ivy in a hug, holding her tight. "Thank you, baby, for understanding, for giving us a chance." "You're my mom," Ivy said softly. "I'll always give you a chance." As Marlena drove home that night, exhausted and emotionally drained, she realized something. Love wasn't easy. It wasn't simple. It didn't come with a manual or a guarantee, but it was worth it. Every sleepless night, every tear, every fight, it was worth it. Because Gregory Callahan loved her and she loved him. And together they were going to get through this. 3 days later, Gregory was discharged from the hospital with strict orders to rest, change his diet, and avoid stress. Marlena moved into his house to help take care of him, and for the first time they stopped hiding. They were together, officially, publicly, and when Ivy and Brendan came over for dinner a week later and saw Marlena and Gregory sitting side by side on the couch holding hands, they didn't flinch. They just smiled. "So," Brendan said, grinning, "I guess this means we're all family now, huh?" Gregory squeezed Marlena's hand, his eyes full of warmth. "Yeah, I guess it does." And for the first time in a long time, Marlena felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Chapter 10, The Forever Kind. 6 months later, Marlena stood in the backyard of Gregory's Malibu estate, the Pacific Ocean stretching out endlessly before her, and felt like she was living in a dream. The yard had been transformed into something out of a magazine, white roses everywhere, string lights glowing softly in the early evening, a small arch decorated with eucalyptus and baby's breath. Ivy stood beside her, adjusting the delicate gold bracelet on Marlena's wrist. "You look beautiful, Mom." Marlena looked down at the dress she'd chosen, a simple, elegant cream gown that hugged her curves perfectly. She'd never imagined herself getting married again, especially not at 47. But here she was. "I'm nervous," Marlena admitted, her voice shaking slightly. Ivy smiled. "You should be. You're about to marry my father-in-law. That's still weird, by the way." Marlena laughed, her nerves easing slightly. "Yeah, it is." Ivy took her mother's hands, her expression serious. "But it's also beautiful, Mom. You've spent your whole life taking care of me, sacrificing for me. And now you get to be happy, you get to be loved, and I'm so, so happy for you." Marlena's eyes filled with tears, and she pulled Ivy into a tight hug. "I love you, baby." "I love you too, Mom." The music started, a soft acoustic guitar, playing a melody Marlena didn't recognize but loved instantly. Ivy squeezed her hand one more time, then stepped back, taking her place beside Brendan near the arch. Marlena took a deep breath and started walking. There were only about 20 people there, close friends, family, a few colleagues from the hospital, but Marlena only saw one person, Gregory. He was standing under the arch wearing a simple gray suit, his eyes locked on hers, and the look on his face made her heart skip. It was a look of pure, unfiltered love. When she reached him, Gregory took her hands, his grip warm and steady. The officiant, a friend of Gregory's from his college days, smiled warmly. "Well, folks, we're gathered here today to witness something pretty special." Gregory and Marlena have been through a lot to get to this moment, and I think we can all agree that what they have is the real deal. A few people chuckled, and Marlena felt her cheeks warm. The officiant continued, "Gregory, you want to start?" Gregory nodded, his eyes never leaving Marlena's. "Marlena, when I met you, I was a ghost. I was walking through life, but I wasn't really living. And then you came along and you woke me up. You reminded me what it feels like to laugh, to hope, to love. You're the strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever known. And I promise you, for the rest of my life, I'm going to love you the way you deserve to be loved." Marlena's tears spilled over, and she squeezed his hands tightly. The officiant turned to her. "Marlena." Marlena took a shaky breath. "Gregory, you scared the hell out of me." Laughter rippled through the small crowd, and Gregory grinned. "But you also saved me," Marlena continued, her voice thick with emotion. "You made me believe that I was allowed to want something for myself, that I was allowed to be loved, and you've loved me so well, Gregory, so completely. I promise you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you mean to me." Gregory's eyes were wet now, too, and the officiant smiled. "Well, I think that's about as beautiful as it gets. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Gregory, you may kiss your bride." Gregory didn't hesitate. He pulled Marlena into his arms and kissed her, deep and slow, and the small crowd erupted in cheers. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were grinning like teenagers, and Marlena felt lighter than she had in years. The reception was small but perfect. There was no DJ, no formal program, just good food, cold drinks, and a playlist of songs that Gregory and Marlena both loved. At one point, Ivy pulled Marlena aside, her eyes sparkling. "So, how does it feel to be Mrs. Callahan?" Marlena laughed. I'm keeping my name, actually. And Hayes Callahan has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Ivy grinned. "It does." They stood there for a moment, watching Gregory and Brendan laughing together near the grill, and Ivy sighed. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm really glad you guys found each other." Marlena looked at her daughter, her heart full. "Me too, baby, me too." As the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Gregory pulled Marlena onto the makeshift dance floor. There was no one else dancing, just the two of them, swaying slowly to an old Etta James song. "You happy?" Gregory whispered, his lips close to her ear. Marlena looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Happier than I've ever been." Gregory smiled and kissed her forehead. "Good, because I plan on keeping you that way for the rest of our lives." Later that night, after everyone had left and the yard was quiet, Marlena and Gregory sat on the edge of the cliff, their feet dangling over the rocks below, the sound of the ocean crashing beneath them. Gregory wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "You know," he said softly, "I never thought I'd get a second chance at this, at love, at happiness." Marlena rested her head on his shoulder. "Neither did I." They sat there in comfortable silence for a while, just listening to the waves, feeling the cool breeze on their skin. Then Gregory said, "I love you, Marlena Hayes Callahan." Marlena smiled, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "I love you too, Gregory Callahan." And as they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, Marlena realized something. Love didn't always come when you expected it. It didn't always look the way you thought it would. But when it was real, when it was deep and messy and complicated and beautiful, it was worth every single fight, every tear, every moment of doubt, because at the end of the day, love was the only thing that really mattered, and Marlena had found it. Not in a fairy tale, not in a perfect story, but in the arms of a man who saw her, loved her, and chose her every single day. And that, she thought, was the forever kind.